Hello everybody, I think you're probably wild spirited right out by now because there's been so much of it, but this is like a wild spirit extra for anybody that just thinks that they want that little bit more wild spirit. I got cut off on my part 3 of my last video. Well, my memory card decided that was enough of that, and I think I was saying that it was interesting to follow the idea, how it started off, the wild spirit, right back from, oh, his blooming gloves, right back from this kind of era when it was just a sort of twinkle in the eye of me, basically. Yes, and then coming up with the first idea. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm repeating myself, forgive me if I am, but with both of my tarots, this has been the first card that has come to me and kind of inspired me to do the deck. And this is the chap that started it all off. If he was being revamped, he would not be called the Wandering Minstrel anymore. He'd probably be the Wild Minstrel, and he would still be Free Spirit. But that's how he started off way back when, in his very graphic-y, dotty form. And then I did do a kind of revamp of him, so long before I started doing the actual kind of revamps in earnest and really wanting to redo this deck. And you can see that it's much more like my, well, compare and contrast sort of, if you can, it's much more like my new style. However, if I was doing this again, there'd be lots of things that I'd want to make better. I'm pretty sure I've already said this in the other video, so do excuse me for repeating this little bit again. You know, there's the musical instruments I would make much more realistic, and his face and so forth and so on, and I'd do something about the stars. But anyway, that was what I wanted to start off with. Just, I might be kind of going on too much about it, but it's been interesting for me and hopefully for some of you to see where the whole thing started off. Now, this is just the final extra bit. It's kind of a bonus feature where we just look at some of the art from the deck. Now, this one is very different to this one. This is the very graphic-y style. Now, both of these cards ended up in the original Wild Spirit deck, and then by the time I was coming to the end, the style had changed so profoundly that there was no hard black lines and there was no dot shading, and it was pretty much as I work today. So that was where the inconsistency in the style of the deck came in, because I just could not go back. I kind of evolved through the long process of creating the 78 card deck. I'd kind of, without even really realising it, I'd moved away from the very graphic style to this very soft, more colour-led style. And that is where it kind of progressed to where it is today. But I just thought it's a shame that a lot of this original art is just sat in my... it's over here. Yes, I have... Oh. This folder, this Wild Spirit folder, which I think you've seen a few times now, this is where all the original artwork lurketh. And it's a shame that it hasn't come out more to be looked at. So I'm just going to go through a few of the ones that are kind of overlooked, I think, from the deck. These are all the originals, so you won't get any of that rubbishy printing. In fact, you could see that back in the day, my printer, that's a very back in the day one, my printer I had then was obviously much better than the one I have now. I will not say which brand it is, but it will not be staying with me for much longer if it carries on with this terribly lacklustre performance. Anyway, so these are originals, and there's lots of lovely little bits in them that I thought I would just share this final, very final Wild Spirit kind of review. just because they're not seen very often. And these blooming gloves are so difficult, just for the sake of covering my hands up. Talking of hands, there we are. That's another original. Don't know why, cannot explain to you why some of these cards have been done in A4, some of them have been done in this size, which is less than A4, and then some are this size, which is less than A4 but not really small, and then there's this size, which is even smaller. I don't know, it's been so long since I did these original pieces that I have absolutely no idea why they got smaller and bigger. I do know that if you try and read that writing, you won't be able to, because I made it very sort of cryptic, because the point of it wasn't what it said, but the whole idea of referring to the book in a council. So, yeah, I like the colours, I like the shading, I like the style of it, but I really probably could not replicate it today. Here has been always one of my favourites. Now this is going back to slightly more graphic-y style again, and I am going to keep saying graphic-y because it's really the only descriptive word that I have got. This migration card has always been one of my favourites. Just like the simplicity of it, and the swallows, and the feeling of freedom that it engenders. And it's probably not terribly great in terms of perspective, but then with all of these cards, perspective has been an issue, both with this deck and the other deck, the Everyday Enchantment deck, because you're working to a small space and your perspective cannot always be perfect, otherwise some things would disappear and you can't fit everything in that you need to. So I'm quite aware that that horse and rider need to be probably bigger, otherwise that would probably be a gigantic swallow because it's quite close to them. So it doesn't matter though, because overall it's a lovely design, and I can say this because I'm reviewing it and thinking, yeah, you did okay there, Poppy. That was all right. I like it. Now this one is a unique blend, the Caged Bird, because you have these graphic elements of the ferry, another swallow, very much one of my favourite birds. Very obvious, I don't even have to point it out to you that this is incredibly graphic in its styling, with the very dense black line around it. And then you have the Caged Bird, which is in the new subtle style, and I think that works really well because it gives you kind of a sense of the bird being a long way behind the bars and kind of blurred out and sort of lost, and the sense of freedom of the bird in the foreground, which is really bold. So I can understand why I blended the two together, but that is an unusual one because the two things appear in the same image. Then we have this one, Illumination, which comes from I think this illustration was around for a long time and I played around with it for ages until I got this, again in a very graphic style, but the colours. This, as I said in one of the other videos, one of the 3 videos that I've made about the wild spirit, yes, I was so much more free with the use of colour in this one as I was as opposed to the Everyday Enchantment one, because I was tied to more realistic colours and settings because it had to be everyday and recognisable, whereas this I had the freedom to play around with all sorts of lovely colours and styles and not be entirely realistic or, I'll say, accurate, but I wasn't constrained by anything and I could have a bit more fun with that, I feel, now looking back on it. And that's, I think, in having an overall aesthetic design, whereas the Everyday Enchantment deck was very much about getting as much information in there as possible so that the cards would be easy to read by a person who was not familiar with the tarot. That was really one of its goals, and there were other goals as well, like having the inclusivity of all beings. Every card had a representative of all beings. These cards didn't have that constraint. These are much more about aesthetics and beauty, I think. And I'm not saying that there aren't beautiful cards in the Everyday Enchantment deck, but this was a different kind of freedom to play around. And here again we have a blood bond with a card that is totally in the new style. So I'm not sure what people would have thought about that. One minute they're getting a card that looks like this, which is dark lines, graphic dots, and then they're getting one that looks like this. And I'm surprised actually that Llewellyn didn't pick up on the fact that there's certain, I know I have done a video on this in the past, but there are cards there that perhaps stylistically should not have been in there because it made too much of a leap stylistically. They should have been much more cohesive. However, these are lovely images. Look at his lovely face. I think he was based a bit on John Denver or somebody. I'm not quite sure, but he's rather lovely. I'm sure she is too, but you can't see her. So I was very pleased with that. It's very nice, subtle sea colours. Romantic. Nice. Yes. Anyway, let's move on to this feisty fellow. So he would be one that I'm going to need to revamp. This is kind of a midway. I'm not sure whether this is the actual one that got... I think it probably is. This is the actual one that got on the card. But so it's still got the graphic elements, but it's got a lot more colour work in it as well. I'm not sure how I can revamp this without it looking a bit... I don't know, because my realistic style, how do you make a realistic style into a mythic tree with a face? I'm going to have to really think about that one, aren't I? In fact, I have been really thinking about it and I still haven't really worked out how I'm going to do that. So yes, it's going to be tricky, but maybe there's a way to make the lightning tree into a realistic sort of hybrid tree man. Sure there is. So he's to come. What's underneath him? Oh, that one again. I just picked this one because I really always liked it, the Mermaid. What I liked about it was what you see in the mirror, which is somebody. If you go really close, it's difficult to see when it's a small card. When you go really close, you can see somebody asleep. So she's sort of mirroring you dreaming, which has meaning in the card. And I liked the colours. I love the pale greens, and I like the design of it. And I think it's worth revisiting. But I did enjoy that little detail of the sleeping person reflected. That's you. That is you. And it throws up all sorts of questions. But yes, that is the Mermaid. And I had to include this one, Gone to Ground, because I just love it. And it's one of the ones that blends the old style and the new style really quite successfully. So this one wouldn't have stood out in the deck as being of the new style. It kind of blended both. The cards that blended both, I think, were probably the most successful ones in the deck. Well, also, it's just really nicely done. I'm proud of it. The snail is lovely. There's some nice colours in there. And because this is the original artwork, you can pick up a lot more from it, as opposed to being a nasty print. You can tell I'm not enamoured of my printer. It has let me down when I needed it most. There we go. So yes, if you look at the lovely colours in that snail, all those, it's like, remember my screwdriver? If any of you have watched my screwdriver video, say that, because I think it's going to pick up, some algorithm or bot is going to pick up the word screwdriver again and make this into a kind of rude comment video. But yes, it's a similar thing, that a snail has all sorts of colours within it. It is not just a brown thing. I'm very pleased with that. I hope you are too, because I'm not doing this just for me. It's like, this isn't pat on the back for Poppy video, it's just like sharing things that I think have worked well, revisiting them because it's quite nice to do so, because they don't get seen very often, especially not the original artwork, which only I have, obviously. Now we're moving on to Wishing Well, which has gone into completely the new style with no hard lines hardly, except maybe around the toad there. But yes, so that would be one of the cards that I would have thought, Llewellyn would have thought, well, that doesn't quite fit with the other ones, but they allowed them all in, whether they were graphic-y or whether they were more of this loose colour style. So there you go. There is a little bit of a graphic element to this one. It still has some hard lines around it, but mostly it is translated. Let's forget trans. It has morphed into the new way of doing things, which then morphed into the way that I'm working now. I just love the subtlety. I always love doing subtleties. That lilac coloured pencil, I can't get that pencil anymore. I have a few stubs of it left, and it's really, really worrying me, because along with that kind of slaty grey blue that you can see to the right and that lilac colour, which is like mist, when those pencils run out, I'm going to be really at a loss, because I utilise them all the time for shading and shadowing and subtlety. And it's for some reason Derwent, I shall mention their name, decided they were going to upgrade the style and the colours of their pencils, even though they called them the same names, and they were horrible colours and horrible textures. And I only have these stumpy little things left that when they're gone, and it'll be sad and tricky, because I've searched high and low throughout pencils across the land, and I cannot find a pencil that matches the lilac that it used to be, or the slaty grey. Ho hum. Oh, the tedious little things of Poppy. Yes. Here we have the fledgling, which is a lovely, cheeky, funny little card in the graphic style. I just thought I'd mention it because it's just so cute and joyful pixie discovering blackbirds and fledglings. It's just, there's lots of, it's fun and it's light, and it's just probably not the most accurately drawn in the world, but it has something, it has a charm about it, and that was the whole Wild Spirit initially. It was about charm and whimsy and joy, really. That was its it didn't have any great sort of ethos. I mean, obviously I've always had the wild-spirited, green-spirited, wild-hearted ethos throughout my work, but I wasn't quite so far along as with the Everyday Enchantment deck, where I really had a sort of a cohesive ethos to imbue the deck with, which was one of oneness and empathy and so forth and so on. Anyway, this is Jack in the Green. I think that if I was working on this again, he would stay pretty much as he is, with some minor changes, improvements, but yes, more realism. But generally, there's that lovely grey lilac-y colour again. You can see how much I used it. Llewellyn said I had too many men with long hair and beards of the same face in my deck. That was probably because he reflected a partner that I'd had, and he just kept turning back up in my pictures. It's almost like when you're drawing women and you end up drawing some part of you always ends up in there, so they look, even if they don't look like you, they've got the wrong colour hair or whatever, there's always something, a little bit of you in there. And for a while, all my men tended to look a little bit like him. So I had to really pull myself away from that and become aware of it. I'm glad they pointed it out to me, otherwise we would have had a deck full of men that looked exactly like Jack in the Green. So if he was being revamped, there wouldn't be much change there, I don't think. There would be with this one, because this is one I mentioned in the other video. There are some lovely parts of this one. This is the hooded one, based on Robin Hood. The lovely detailing of the Celtic knot there, which there's no way I could do without a rotoring pen. Tiny rotoring pen. If you don't know what one is, they just have minute little ink nibs. Not even nibs, are they? Well, anyway, they're just very, very fine lining. So you could get, when I was doing the graphic style, you could do such incredible detailing at such a small level because of this tiny nib. And of course my eyesight was a lot better then because I was a lot younger, and I could really see down deep into the detailing. Anyway, this one would have to change a lot. This is going to be problematic. I still want the Robin Hood theme to be kept, but not this image because it is too confusing. It's about honour. It's all about honour, Robin Hood being honourable spirit and offering money instead of, you know, do you want the gold or do you want to be a good chap kind of thing. That was the message there, but it was all got a bit confusing. There's a wolf in the background because Wolf's Head being an outlaw, but overall that needs a complete revamp and that will be different, and I don't know how it will be different, but it won't look like that. It's very interesting though to revisit it and see how much work I put into the tiniest little thing, the hairs on people's hands, creases on his brow, and this lovely knotwork and the detailing on the sword and everything. So yes, that can never happen again because of not working with a rotary pen. Got to finish off because I'm nearly at the end, right? So this will be very easy to revamp Wild Witch because it's pretty much done. And not much to be changed with that really. There was a purpley version using that lovely lilac pencil somewhere, and I don't know, I'm sure this is the one that was on the card. I'm pretty sure of that. Should have checked it before you made the video. Yes, I know. But I think this one is successful and would be, let's go and have a really good look. Obviously this one was in the new style again, without the graphic. There's a little bit of black lining on the owl's wing. Look at the detail there, and I feel like some sort of trumpet blowing person here, but I'm not. I'm just amazed that I did it. Really, it's almost like looking at somebody else's thing, and also, you know, just appreciating that there was a lot of work that went into this, a lot of work, and it does deserve to come out and be seen again. So that was that one. This is another one that needs to be changed. This would be Temperance. It is called The Inner Child. It would have to be completely changed, not only because it is a graphic styled one, but because it is not a very cohesive image, and I don't think I'd even stick with that particular theme. It's a nice enough picture. It's pretty little elf child sitting, but no, that's not how it would look, and that is one of the majors, so I'd have to really think about that if I'm going to complete the majors. Have we got another one under there? Is there another one? Yes, there is. Quickly, because I've gone. Oh, it's you, so that's okay. One more. You'll be glad to hear. Only one more, and that is the Hunter. Again, one of the majors that has not been done. I like it. It is the Chariot card. You know, about will, focus, arrows of desire, and it's been done really nicely. Partly in the graphic style, partly in the new style. But is this the card that I want to represent the Chariot in the Wild Spirit deck? I don't know. If it is, it might change slightly in its design, but I think it did work really well, and you can see the look of concentration in his face. I tell you, I put a lot of effort into this, and it was very sad to me when it was so swiftly put into remaindered, taken out of print. So I think it does deserve another go, which is why I've been working so hard on it. So maybe he will be one that I could tackle next. So he is the perfect blend of the old style and the new style, and we will finish upon him. If I hold the camera there, it might even save it as the, what do you call it? Oh, the thing that comes down. Oh god, I can't even remember the name of the stupid thing. You know, the thing that you see when you go to a video. It's complete. This happens every time I make videos. I lose words. It's very embarrassing. Maybe I am just becoming a doddering old fool. You know, the things that come down the side of a video where you choose one because it looks, oh god. I'm going to remember that as soon as I turn this camera off, and I'm going to feel like an idiot all night. Okay, bye. Lots of love. Thanks for watching again. Take care. Stay free. Big hugs. Bye.